Hello, this is Greg Herrman with Herrman Herrman Law Firm. I just wanted to cover today real quickly, if you have a teenage driver, some things that ought to be in the teens auto policy. Um, Number one is coverage. That means uninsured motorists. There's a whole lot of people driving around out there that do not have insurance, especially because of the pandemic lately. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and so they're going to pay their rent before they pay their car insurance. So there's lots of people without insurance. So coverage means you're protected if somebody else runs into you. Your teen's protected, and for that matter, everybody ought to have because it'll cover your property damage, it'll cover your injuries, it'll cover everything else. Um, the second thing is PIP, personal injury protection. This is no fault insurance. Everybody ought to have some. Um, it's relatively inexpensive, and that covers you even if it's your fault, or it's other person's fault and they don't have insurance and you don't have PIP covers anybody in your vehicle for your medical expenses and your lost wages. And your PIP carrier doesn't care whose fault it is; that they just got to pay the bills. Um, Next thing is rental coverage. Let's say your car's totaled, and the adverse insurance company drags their feet paying you, or they decide they're only going to pay you for 5 days, but it's going to take 2 weeks to get your car fixed. What are you going to do if you don't have a car? So a lot of people do not have rental coverage. It's very inexpensive to add rental coverage so that when your car gets damaged and it's going to be in the shop longer than you think, or you need more time to go find a new vehicle, you've got a rent car to drive around in. Gap. This is something we see a lot. People used to finance their cars, for 2, 3 years. Now people finance their cars for 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 years. And so what happens is, as soon as you drive your car off the lot, it loses value. And your car is a depreciating asset that loses value very quickly. So what happens, you've had your car 2 or 3 years, but you're financing it for 8 years, 7, 8 years. You get in a wreck, the car's totaled, and the insurance company says, okay, here's what we're going to pay you because that's all your car's worth. But you owe more money than that to the bank who you borrowed the money to buy the car with. So what are you going to do? You owe the bank 20,000, and the insurance company says your car's only worth 15,000. So you're 5,000 in the hole, but you still got to pay the bank. So there's something called gap insurance. So ask your agent about gap insurance and get that. And the reason I'm bringing it up under teen driving is because teens are just a lot more likely to get in accidents, and that's why it costs more for their insurance and everything else. So anyway, so be sure and get that, and then also towing, just in case. Again, it's very, very cheap to add towing to your policy instead of having to pay some wrecker service, $200, $300, $400, or whatever they charge. And that's about it. You might want to consider increasing your liability a little bit, especially for property damage done to the other vehicle, because your standard policy in Texas is a 30-60-25 policy, which means $30,000 for other people you injure or your teen injures, 60,000 for a total. So let's say your teenager runs into a car with 10 people in it. $30,000 doesn't go very far, but 60,000 goes a whole lot more. But then you usually only have 25,000 to cover damage to another vehicle. The problem with that is what if you run into somebody driving a Mercedes or a BMW or an Audi, a brand new car, a $100,000 car? $25,000 is not going to go very far. So you probably ought to raise that up some, especially just again because teenagers tend to have a lot more accidents. So just to summarize real quick: PIP, rental, gap, towing, and liability. Make sure your teen has those before you give them the keys to the car. Thanks.